Are you not entertained?
Yes, sir! We'll have a real good time!
He's Dave, and I'm Dallas, and this is Vintertainment. We have opinions on just about everything. Sometimes those opinions are spot on. Sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine. This is Vintertainment, the wine and entertainment pairing podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another VINTERVIEW. Now, normally, Vintertainment is a show where we pair wine with works of entertainment, deep dive into that piece of pop culture and or art, and then sprinkle in a little wine edumacation. But today, instead, we have a very special guest interview, a VINTERVIEW. This is part 3, or rather, a companion piece to our 2-part coverage of Francis Ford Coppola's Alpha and Omega of his career, The Godfather and then Megalopolis. Go check out those episodes if you have not, and I highly recommend that you do, and then come back here to listen to this very special VINTERVIEW with one of the actresses of the film Megalopolis. Now, before we introduce our special guest, as always, everyone, please be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button if you have not done so already. That sincerely helps this podcast grow. Also, especially if you're already a subscriber and so completely useless to us in that regard, do this instead. Recommend us to a friend or family member. Anyone you think will like deep dives into movies, TV, books, comics, and or music, all matched with wine and wine education. Also, as we're doing today, interviews with professionals from both the wine and entertainment industries. And don't just follow this podcast. Also follow us and interact with us on Substack. Just head to vintertainmentstudios.com, where you'll find all our podcast episodes broken down by subject matter, articles on wine and entertainment, bonus pairings, interactive polls, chats, and pairing directories covering all the wine and entertainment pairings we've ever done, once again broken down by subject matter and updated weekly. Now, some of this is only available to paid subscribers of our Substack, though we have made this as easy as possible to support us and gain access to everything we do by pricing these subscriptions at only $2 per month or $19.60 per year. We know that if you are the kind of person who supports independent voices online, there are too damn many. Good problems to have, but so many writers, artists, filmmakers, there are projects on crowdfunding platforms. We know it's hard to support everyone you want to support. So, if we happen to be one of those people, you can now spread your money a little further with the subscription to Vintertainment being only $2 per month. We hope to see you there, even, believe it or not, if you don't throw money at us like the cheap hookers we are. All right, now let's get started with today's special guest. Everyone, warm welcome to Haley Sims.
Woo!
Quick intro of Haley. In 2nd grade, Haley was voted the wagon master of her class in their reenactment of the Oregon Trail. And man, she's been chasing that high ever since. She graduated from University of California, Santa Barbara with dramatic arts degree and double honors, which was super helpful when she moved to Los Angeles to become an actress. She studied at the Beverly Hills Playhouse in the advanced class for 10 years and then studied at Leslie Kahn's studio. You may have spotted her on TV shows such as Dead to Me, Reservation Dogs, GIRLS Revolt, and FLAKED. And most recently, she co-starred in the horror movie The Grove, which recently received a limited theatrical release on April 4th. But she is here today because she eventually moved away from Los Angeles and found herself in Atlanta, Georgia, where she was positioned to audition for Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, and where she snagged the role of Sunny Hope Catalina. Nothing on the nose about that character name. Nope. Wife to Adam Driver's Caesar Catalina. So get ready to chat about how the unlikeliest opportunities can come at the unlikeliest of times. Haley, welcome to Vintertainment. How's Atlanta treating you this fine afternoon? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you not miss LA?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, what actor doesn't love talking about their acting? Thank you.
Hopefully. If you hate it, I'm like, why are you doing it?
I know. No, I'll talk about myself all day. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I'm enjoying it very much. I've been here 4 years. I miss LA precisely zero amount. Um, yeah.
Really?
So I'm,
Zero?
I'm
Wow. It's got to be
I know.
something. A coffee
No, okay.
shop,
Yes.
a hike.
I've got, yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. LA will always hold a very special place in my heart. I lived there for 12 years, grinding
Yeah.
away as an actor.
Yeah.
I have a lot of family and friends there and
Yeah.
a lot of fabulous restaurants. So I miss the people.
Well,
the
by the way,
much
they're all
trauma.
closed now. All those restaurants
Yeah.
are closed now.
Yeah, this is also true.
They've
Like
all-
us.
yeah, yeah. But I'm really liking Atlanta. So this is a good, I don't know that I'll be here forever because LA is where it's at,
Yeah.
although not
Right.
currently right now.
You're
But,
actually in the better spot right now,
Yeah,
I
definitely
would
a better
say.
spot. Real quick, actually, what is, in terms of the sort of hustle of the actor life, the business, what is the primary sort of difference between being a gigging and working actor in LA and Atlanta?
It's a numbers thing. In LA, I am on any single submission that my agent puts me in for, I'm one of 5,000 other
right,
actresses.
right.
And here I'm one in maybe 500.
Great odds,
So
man.
it's just
Yeah.
better
Scale of
odds.
tens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember
Impressive.
when people were first starting to move out to Atlanta before the pandemic, and I was like such a snob about it. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing going
Yeah.
to Atlanta? Like, LA is where you have to be.
Right.
And they're like, well, big fish, smaller pond. And I'm like, whatever, the ocean is LA. But now that I'm here, now I'm like, you guys had the right idea because I am a
Right,
bigger
right.
fish in a smaller pond. And I
Right.
like that. I like
Right.
that for me.
Fascinating.
Beautiful.
Interesting.
So walk us through a little bit. Give us a little overview of your career as an actress. Like, what was the struggle like leading up to you, like your 12 years in LA, and then leading up to you moving to Atlanta to be in the position, all the way up to that moment where you were able to audition for Megalopolis. Like, how was that for you? Give us a brief little, as brief as you can, a brief
I know.
overview.
You guys are gonna have to reel me in because I get
We
going
will.
and
No worries.
and then I'm
Trust me,
just off. And
you're preaching to the choir here.
okay, great.
We are
and
babblers. We can't judge.
Perfect. That's perfect. I also have like a billion stories about Megalopolis. So
Ooh.
Sweet.
yeah. Okay, let's see. How do we do this in a quick nutshell? 12 years in LA, very much the like classic actor grind. The first few years just got into an acting school and tried to figure out how to get my first co-star, which I eventually did by kind of joining a pyramid scheme. Yes, the casting director shall remain nameless, but I was like, yes, I'm interested in your product. Exchanged emails, phone numbers. Baby got her first co-star. So I really worked the system on that one.
I was going to say,
and-
yeah, that's the best result from a pyramid scheme I've yet heard. So, hey.
Yeah.
And to be fair,
Yeah.
that is a totally valid sort of route to a guest star role, co-star role in LA. And one of the only
Yeah,
places where
right?
it's actually valid. Yeah.
If she's going to come at me, I'm going to use her and then it's all going to be fine.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep. So that's how I got my start.
Nice.
And then I was just grinding away, and there was a little bit of a turning point when I got Dead to Me, because that show was super fun and also ended up being very well received and very popular. And I became the Hey Girl, and I got to be in all 3 seasons of that, just popping up every once in a while, being like, Hey Girl to Linda Cardellini. And that was so fun and put me on the map in a little bit of a different way. I had a recurring thing under my belt. I had 3 seasons. I had got to work with Christina and Linda and James Marsden and all those fabulous people. So that gave me a little leg up. So then I felt like when people were like, oh, have I seen you in anything? And I'm like, Hey Girl. and then they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, oh, come on. Don't you know? So did that. So got a little bit of momentum from that. Couple more co-stars, and then the pandemic happened. So everything shut down and got real quiet. And then I didn't have a job and I didn't have an apartment and my relationship ended and blah, blah, blah. So I was living with my parents. My acting manager dropped me. And in that breakup conversation, he was like, if you can, go to Canada. And I was like, cute. How am I going to do that? And he was like,
Yeah.
and if you can't go to
Just
Canada,
go to Canada.
yeah, I was like, sound advice. It's not you, it's me. Like, I don't.
Right.
And he was like, if you can't go to Canada, go to Atlanta. And I was like, F you, I'm not going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then I got off the phone with him and I was like, well, I don't know. Like, maybe there is something about Atlanta. And so I called up my best friend, Rachel, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Atlanta for like 6 months to a year just to see what it's like. It's tail end of pandemic. Everything's shut down in LA, but they're the South, for better or for worse. They're still chugging along. And they figured out self-tapes a long time ago. So like, what if we just go check it out? So we were like, all right, if we can get agents, we'll go to Atlanta for 6 months to a year. So we got ourselves agents.
You and the best friend did this together.
Mm-hmm,
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to tell me you're working on a buddy comedy about this story. You got it. There's got to be a script someplace, right? Okay. All right.
Yeah. We're working on it. So we moved out here and immediately started auditioning so much more than I ever did in LA. Again, the numbers thing. And both of us were just like, oh my God, whoa, what is this? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then let's see, we were here, maybe it was after a year, probably a year-ish. She saw this thing on Instagram and it was an open call for Coppola's new movie. He was filming in Atlanta and they were just putting an open call out to actors in Atlanta. And She sends it to me on Instagram. She goes, you think this is a scam? And I'm like, I don't know, probably.
Yes, let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I have great luck with these things.
I'm feeling good about this scam. It's always worked for me in the past. And I was like, look, you just send an email. So we sent an email being like, yeah, we're interested in coming to this open call. We get emails back saying, cool, you're RSVP'd, show up at Trilith Studios, which is the big studios down here in Fayetteville, just south of Atlanta, at 8 a.m. on a Monday. Francis is going to be there. Bring your headshot. He's going to take your headshot, shake your hand, ask you a question. That's going to be the thing. And then we're like,
this never happens. That's hilarious.
He's going to be there? Like, we're going to meet Francis? Like, what? So I take the day off work. Rachel's and I, we're like, okay, we're going. We're making this happen. We drive down to Trilith at 7 a.m. Hundreds of Atlanta actors there, maybe 300, maybe 500. I don't even know. We were part of the first crew. They COVID tested everybody. It was phenomenally run how they had this sorted out. Very well executed. So then we get funneled into this gymnasium, about 100 actors at a time. And up at this front long table is Francis and his producing partner and the casting directors and a couple other miscellaneous people. And we're just like, oh my God.
Surreal.
Francis freaking Ford Coppola just sitting at this table. What? And we're all just, a bunch of actors holding our headshots. Right.
Holding the Godfather, of course. At him.
So then they have us get up one row at a time into a line of 10 actors. And one at a time, we walk up to the table. We hand Francis our headshot, shake his hand, and then he asks everybody a question. And generally the question he was asking people was, do you have any other skills or hobbies outside of acting? So, and people would be like, well, I'm a dancer, or I sing, or I, do karate or whatever. But whatever you answered, he would ask you to do some of. So if you were like, oh, well, I do ballet, he'd be like, great, do third position or something. I obviously don't do ballet, so I don't know what positions are. But then so you'd see people up there doing their whatever, and then they'd be like, oh, I sing, and he'd be like, great, do a bar of your favorite musical. And so people would start singing, and you're just like, right, he's really tested people. Just making things up. So I'm standing in line, my little line is moving closer and closer, and then he goes, well, this is getting kind of stiff. Are people bored? Why don't we shake it up a little? Why don't everybody in line come over here? Let's make a circle. We're going to play a little improv game. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm going to do an improv game with Francis Ford Coppola. I'm thinking this is as crazy as my life is going to get. I have no idea what's in store for me. So we get into a circle. We play that game where you make a sound and pass it across the circle. Mm-hmm. So we're passing sounds with Coppola for a couple of minutes. And then he's like, okay, great, let's get back to it. And we're just like, oh my God, this is nuts. What? So then, Rachel goes up and she shakes his hand and he says, do you have any skills? She says, I'm a dancer, I used to be. And he tells her, do some positions. She does some positions. Then she moves along and then I go up, I hand him my headshot, I shake his hand. He goes, do you have any other skills or hobbies? And I'm like, honestly, I'm really only good at acting.
No, that's great, actually.
And he kind of looks at me like, not super entertained. And he goes, what do you do when you're not acting? And I said, well, I'm a preschool teacher, which is true. When I moved to Atlanta, I became a preschool teacher. And he lit up and he goes, really? And I go, yeah,
wow.
I teach 2.5 to 3-year-olds. They're very, very sweet. And he was like, I used to teach a summer camp, a theater class to 9-year-old boys. And I was like, oh, wow. He goes, I think they all own Manhattan now.
Yeah.
Like, they probably do.
They probably
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Right. You're about to
so
make
then-
a movie basically opposing them and
Right.
everything they're doing today.
Yeah. But yeah, Frenzy is great. So then we talked about kids and art for a couple of minutes. And then I thanked him for being there and for meeting him. And he said, no, nice to meet you. And then I walked away and I was like, oh my God, I just met Francis. What is happening? And then I promptly locked myself in a bathroom and couldn't get out. And I couldn't get a hold of my girlfriends because their phones were all on silent for like 10 minutes. It was a real high
location?
kind of day.
In the
Yeah, they
location?
had those trailer bathrooms set up.
Yeah.
And I I walk out there and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, gonna use the bathroom before we drive home for an
Oh
hour. And
my
I'm like in the
gosh.
bathroom looking at myself in the mirror, like, you're so cool. You met Francis and I'm going to the bathroom. And then I reach for the door and I'm like, just fully locked myself.
All right, this is the first scene of the buddy comedy.
That's like when the
by way.
nerves hit, right? Where it's like that. That's like now you start shaking, and you're like, "Oh,
Yes.
that was the delayed reaction that I needed to hold off while I was in there."
That's
But
right.
yeah, it's such a high. The come down is a crash.
Like I'm like in there talking about shaking. Like, it was
Right.
very silly. Calling my friends, their phones are on silent. And I'm like, you guys. Eventually they found me and they helped me lift the door
Thank
and
God.
push, and it was the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
So that was great. So then I was like, if this is it, if this is what I get from this,
Right.
this is the story, then that's awesome. And then a day or two later, I got an email that I was invited to a callback for the role of Sunny with Francis. And I was like, are you shitting me? Like, all I did was hand this guy my headshot, talk about preschool, and I somehow have a callback for a role that has a name? Like, what? They don't send me any sides. They say it's either Francis will give you a sides there or it'll be
Known for
improv.
that. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
It kind of makes
and-
sense for that character though too, because there aren't really that many lines. Like you're very much a physical presence, but not someone who has to do a lot of back and forth dialogue with other characters. Yeah.
Yeah, it all makes a lot of sense now, but at the
Right.
time it was
Not then.
wild. So we held the callbacks at the hotel that he bought down in Peachtree City, the All Movie Hotel. So he had purchased that hotel. It was like half blown up so that's where he had the callbacks. There was just full walls missing. I mean, so I drive all the way down to Peachtree City and I come to this like ratty rundown hotel and I'm like,
If you thought it wasn't a scam before,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
but I met him. How is this even more
I'm like,
scammy?
I think he's gonna be here. Like, it was very funny. It was like very weird, really, just like literal walls missing out of the side of this hotel building. So I go in. They COVID tested everybody again, very well run. So I go into this tiny little room, and it's Francis and his producing partner and casting. There's this like tall velvet chair sitting in front of them that I like sit in. And Francis goes, "Are you the Aussie?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not Australian. I'm the preschool teacher." And he was like, "Oh, yeah. And he goes, "Do you dance?" And I go, no. And he goes, "You can't dance?" And I was like, "Not really. I mean, I can like hold it down in the club,
Right.
but like, I don't know like how to dance." Yes. And he goes, "Okay, that's okay." He goes, "Okay, so why don't you go ahead and stand up for me, and I'm going to have you do some interpretive dance."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
Nice.
what about the part where I said I couldn't dance? What about that? He goes, "I want you to go ahead and do some interpretive movement. And I want you to pretend like you're a ghost." Now, we have seen the movie, so we know that this makes sense. Again, at the time, I was like, WTF. And he's like, "I want you to move around the space. I want you to haunt me. You don't have to come up to the table, but I want you to haunt me. And I want you to be a ghost, the ghost of yourself." And I was like,
So you
the
do your
ghost of
best Patrick
myself.
Swayze and move around.
Yeah.
Well, he's
Yeah,
a dancer,
yeah.
man.
Right.
I know he had one up on me already. And so I'm standing there. Talk about the most out of body experience. I'm just like, what, it's Francis. You just
Yeah.
go, you just do
Yeah.
whatever. So I start moving, as one does when you're a ghost. And he was like, I want you to haunt me. He's like, now I want you to be the ghost of my ex-wife. And I want you to make me feel bad for everything that I've done. I want you to make me feel guilty. And so I'm moving my arms. And at one point I'm like, I should move my legs. So then I'm moving my legs. Just trying to I don't even know. And then he's like, and now you want to seduce me. You want to lead me away. You want to guide me out of here. And so then I'm like, yes, I'm trying to seduce you.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So then I'm doing all this stuff. And then he goes, okay, great. Thank you so much. It was nice to see you again. And I'm like, oh, that's it. Okay, great.
That was a callback.
That was my callback. And I was like,
And then you go lock yourself in the bathroom immediately, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, basically. Well, yeah, essentially the same thing. I go down to my car and I just sit and stare into the middle distance for a good 5 minutes, being like,
that just happened.
What just happened?
I know.
Was that real life? What was that?
Right. I mean, it's the things you can't truly prepare for, right? Because you don't know what it is until you get there. And then it's over and you're like, yeah, all the things you could have done, all the sudden thoughts you have now that you've had 10 minutes to think about it. But that's part of the point is he wants it spontaneous in the moment. And you're like, well, that was that.
Yeah.
That is what I've got. Yeah. And I've now since heard that is kind of what he does. He kind of vibes with people. He doesn't even really give you lines. He just wants to see your energy and particularly for this character, sort of just how she exists and moves. So now I know it's normal, but yeah, it was a trip. And I didn't know how to feel about what I'd done because it was so beyond anything I'd ever participated in.
So how long between that and the next callback? There were two. So
then just a couple of days go by and I get a text message from my agent who I love and is a very good friend of mine. And he was like, I had reached out to him after I didn't tell, I have an Atlanta agent and I have a LA agent and I didn't tell either of them I was going to the open. I didn't tell either of them I was going to the open call because I was like, this is crazy and I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I did this interpretive dance for Francis and I was like, I think I'm going to call Anthony. So I'm call my LA agent on my way back home from this call back. And I'm like, okay, so a crazy thing just happened. And I tell him all about it. And he was like, wow. I will let you know if I hear anything. So then he texts me a couple nights later and he's like, hey, I need your Atlanta agent's email. And I'm like, okay. So I sent him her email and he's like, okay. And also because I want to be the one that tells you you're the choice for Coppola.
Sweet. Oh,
and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to need you to spell that out for me.
Right.
And he was like, you are going to be Sunny Catalina in Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And I screamed and I jumped on the coffee table and it was a whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And even better, my best friend also booked the movie, which was amazing. She also had a weird callback, but her callback was not interpretive dance. Her callback was just lines and improv. Okay. So a little more normal. Yeah. So yeah, we were just like, this is insane. This is why we moved to Atlanta. This is the moment. This is why we're here.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was wild. It was really wild. Neither of us really could believe that had happened, and the way that it happened was wild.
It's nice that there was only one callback, though. That feels like a relatively painless, I know that's weird saying it now that we just shared all the pain, but it's relatively painless compared to how these things can be dragged out and teased for, indefinitely. And this was one callback. And then he's like, I made my decision. And I'm like, ooh, beautiful. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. And I think he must have sensed it. I think he just was picking up those vibes even before that second call. I think even just meeting people on that day, he was making notes on headshots and I think he had scribbled Sunny on my headshot, and put me in a pile.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah, it was, crazy. So then they send me the script and then I'm looking at the character names and I'm like, Sunny Catalina. But Adam's character is Caesar Catalina. So does that mean that we are married? Am I Adam Driver's wife? Because that's like a whole other. That's great. This is like
your
so
name
much
on
more.
all your socials, Adam Driver's wife.
Sorry, honey. Although you didn't have the honey at that point, right?
Or
were you in? Had you met your current hubby by then?
Yes,
Okay.
I had.
Okay.
I had met him. I don't know. Maybe we weren't married yet, but we were together, and he's like a huge movie buff. And he knows so much more about movies than I do, like so much more. And when he found out I was meeting Frances, he was like more excited than me. And when I found out I booked the movie, my excitement was purely because I got to tell him that I booked the Coppola movie.
That's cute. That's so cute.
It was very cute. It was very cool. Yeah. So then I booked it. And
how
then
long until it began? Like when was the first? I don't know. Did you do like a read through first with everyone, or how did it begin for you?
So the part of Sunny, really, like you said, didn't have a lot of lines.
Right.
She was very much just a presence. So they sent us the script, and I would immediately do that like control find, and I just like click through every time it said Sunny.
Right.
How many pages do I have in this damn thing?
I'm like, this is so cool. And I discovered that while I said very little, I was talked about a lot and referenced and all kinds of things. So I was realizing what a very cool part it was, even though, my ego was like, well, I don't get to say very much, but it's like, it was just a very cool part as far as like just really carrying through the whole movie, sort of her importance. And
did the interpretive dance suddenly make a lot of sense, like on first read through for you, where you were like, oh, I get it? Or did that come later?
It came later because the first call that I got from production was like, hey, cool. So you're our Sunny. And I don't know if you've read the script yet, but one of the things is that there's a puppet of you.
Oh,
and I was like,
yeah.
A puppet, you say? And they're like, yes, it's going to be life-size, sort of marionette. So we need you to come down to Trilith. We're going to put you in one of those boxes with all the cameras.
Yeah.
It's like 350 cameras, take a simultaneous picture, 190 are on your face. They're like, we're going to create an identical puppet to you, life-size, face and
mocap,
hands and feet. Yeah. Okay. And I was like, what is happening? So my first day of work was going down to the studio and getting into this little camera thing and having them take my photos so that they could make this life-size puppet of me. Mm-hmm. And then they hired a dancer to wear my puppet face and hands and feet. And so in the end, they got a dancer to do the dance bits.
Okay.
I do wish
chose
my
you.
puppet.
But
he did choose me. I guess he just wanted to see like what my face might look like on a moving, a body that could dance.
He's like, that's the character. I just need a dancer.
He's like, go ahead. No, let me just.
It's almost ahead of the AI game where he's like, we will pay you for your likeness, but then we're just going to go use it.
We're just going to take your literal head.
Yeah, you did get to do more than that though, but we'll keep going with the story.
Yeah, but I did get to So I had the Sunny puppet and then me, and one of my first days on set was with her as well, and so I'm like looking at myself as a puppet, being like, that's kind of creepy. I don't know about that. So that was first, and then my first day on set was so funny. So just really quick, it's it's my story, but Rachel's first day on set was my best friend who booked it. The very first day that they filmed, and they were in downtown Atlanta, and she played this woman in a jewelry shop who gets like mugged or something. So there's like and it ended up getting cut out of the film, which is very sad. But she gets like mugged, and then Natalie Emanuel is like slapping her awake, and then there's a car chase and there's an explosion. And so it was like big budget, exciting, like sounds, and Frances was there and everybody was there, and it was like, wow. And so she called me afterwards and she was like, oh my God, it was amazing. I've never done anything like this. And so then I'm like, oh, this is going to be so cool. So like I go to my first day on set and they put me in like all white makeup and this white gown.
Stuff you in a box.
And then I sat in my trailer for 14 hours. And then eventually they bring me into this tiny little soundstage studio, and it was awesome, but it was so the opposite of what
Mm.
she had done. I was in
Right.
this tiny little soundstage. I was actually shooting with Roman. I
Okay.
was with second unit,
Yeah.
and we
Right.
were doing super close-ups of my face. If you recall in the movie, there's a couple times where it just like
Mhm.
cuts to my face, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Caesar. So I was doing that. I was like walking past the camera and then being like, Caesar, and like Caesar, like
You've been doing that ever since now in public, right?
yeah, everywhere. The grocery store, I'm like, Caesar.
Caesar. Do I look familiar? No.
Do you know who I
It's
am?
your new thing that
Do
you
you-
say, right?
Yeah,
You know
instead
who
of
I
hey
am.
girl, it's Caesar.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's weird. People are responding differently than the hey girl thing, but um, so it was like it felt like I was doing a very cool student film. Like I was
Yeah.
like this tiny little space and very sort of experimental with the lights and looking like right down the barrel at camera. And I'm going, oh my God, is this okay? Are we sure? But very cool, but not what I was expecting. And then not seeing Frances, I was like, oh, I didn't get to work with Frances.
Yeah.
But again, I had no idea what was to come. So that was my first day. It was like very mellow, very chill. And then they just kept bringing me back. The next time I came back to set, I did a photo shoot with Adam because at one point they pan in the townhouse and there's all those photos of us together.
Yeah.
And so Adam and I did a cute little cozy photo shoot together, which was also very surreal. They were like, okay, be in love. There you go. And we're like, oh my God, what's your name? It's so nice to meet you. I love you.
Right.
And we're supposed to like fake dance and all this stuff. And then they had me in to do the coma stuff where I'm laying on the bed in my coma.
Mhm.
And Adam comes over, braids my hair and stuff. And there's people working on my nails and my hair. At one point I'm laying there and Francis comes in and he was like, grabs my big toe and he's like, this little piggy went to the market. I'm like, this little piggy stayed home. And then we like go back and forth and do the whole thing. And if I was ever a preschool teacher more than in this moment, this is all my training was leading up to this.
Right.
Yeah, so that was cool and it was awesome. And then I wrapped and I was like, wow, that was amazing. I didn't do a lot, but it was still like very cool. And I worked a little bit with Frances. And then there's one part where I have my close-up line of like, be with her. And they put me like within a black box situation. And Francis was like, 3 feet away from me. And he was coaching me all these different ways to say my, 3 words or whatever. And that was like wild and surreal. And at one point he was like, I want you, I can't believe I'm going to even share this story, but he was like, I want you to say it, like you're a ghost, like more of like a ghost thing. So I go,
Boo.
Caesar. And he was like,
He's like, no.
not that.
No.
It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Very
what was
silly.
that? What was that initial period before wrap, time wise? What was the interval from first day to your first wrap?
It was maybe 4 months. It was kind of
Okay.
spread out. We
Right.
started in maybe, I don't know, maybe it was like October or November.
Mhm.
And then I wrapped maybe in February,
Okay.
whatever. So a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
They bleached my eyebrows because I was supposed to be very ghost-like. So I had my
Mhm.
eyebrows bleached for like
Oh boy.
nearly 6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That was
awesome.
that was a real look. That was a real look.
Yep.
Christmas with the in-laws, right?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
every morning I'm coloring them in so I don't scare my preschoolers.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be full albino at that point with
Uh-huh.
your complexion and whatnot with those eyebrows.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was a lot. Yeah.
It was a look.
So then I wrapped and it was amazing and I was like, wow, I just did this thing. For the first time I had my own cast chair. It said Sunny on it. And I was like feeling very cool about that. And it was wild. And then a month went past and I get an email from production, and they're like, "Hey, quick cue. How do you feel about water?" And I was like, "Well,
I don't drink enough, but it's okay."
I could always drink more, and I like it. I find it refreshing, and I can swim.
Ding, ding, ding. That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want to hear.
It's like, where are we going with this? And they're like, "How do you feel about playing dead underwater?" And I was like, I feel pretty good about it. I think that sounds.
You didn't know what it entailed. You're like, great.
Right.
I had no idea. I was like, that seems kind of cool. He's like, "Can you hold your breath underwater?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can hold my breath underwater. You have to like weight me down, but I think I could do it." And he was like, "Cool. I'm going to put you in touch with some of our stunt team." And I was like, a stunt team? Did you say?
Right.
Stunts? And I'm going, okay, yeah, sure.
Am I dying in a
then-
fiery explosion
Right.
underwater? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, they were like, Francis added a line to the script.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to make that happen. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then this fabulous girl calls me, Alexis, I think Lord, her dad is like huge in the stunt world. And she calls me up and she's like, "Hey, my name's Alexis. I'm going to be in charge of your underwater stunts." And I'm like, what is happening? And she gives me this like fabulous spiel about how her number one priority is my safety. And we're going to spend a lot of time making sure I'm comfortable and safe and all this stuff. And I'm listening and I'm like, yeah, no, that all sounds really great. Cool. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to be safe. Great. What am I going to be doing again? Like, can we go back to the part where what?
Right.
And she was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to have you probably 13 feet underwater in a car. And it's going to be as if the car is driven off the thing. And then you're going to be sitting in the car." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." So I get off the phone with her. And that night I have like a complete panic attack because I'm like, hold on.
Of course.
Hold on. We're talking
13
about
feet.
me being 13 feet underwater.
Trapped in the car.
And my air source is not in my hands. My air
Right.
source is somewhere wherever camera is. And I was like, what? But they rented out a dive center down in Peachtree City for a week. And I spent 2 days, 2 6-hour days with Alexis and her assistant, Lacey. And they basically taught me how to scuba, which I had never done before. And I don't know if you have, but it is a wild concept when you're starting out because it does not seem natural or right.
I know it takes
Completely
training to
counterintuitive,
actually, you have to take classes before they'll even let you. You can't just go scuba-ing, right? You can't just, you have to actually take classes. I've never done it, but I'm aware that there's more to it than you expect.
Yeah. And I knew you had to get certified and stuff, but I didn't realize what a mental sort of game it was. Because I go to my first little 6-hour class with them. It was very cool, indoor pool. They've got all rented out for me. And they talk me through all the equipment and how everything works. And I'm just like, okay, sounds okay. And then they show me the reg, and it's rather than like having the tank on my back, they have a tank with like a long tube. It's like a hookah reg. And I've got my goggles. And so they're like, okay, so here's the reg. So you breathe in and out. And then we're in the shallow end. They're like, and then you just go underwater. And I'm like, oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, easy.
breathing. And then I go underwater and I hold my breath. And they're like, so what you're going to do is you're actually going to keep breathing.
Right.
I don't think so. That doesn't seem right. And they're like, you got to trust me. So it's crazy. You have to go down. You really got to focus on breathing because your body is like, we are underwater and breathing would be dumb. So don't do it. You have to force yourself through it.
Training your nervous system to make that natural, make that something you can do. Yeah.
So we spent hours that first day with me just learning how to breathe underwater. And to the point where I could sit in the shallow end. They put weighted belts in my lap and I would sit down. I had my goggles on and I'd sit down just at the bottom of the pool with my little rag and I would just breathe. And they would be like, just hang out till you feel comfortable. And that's what we did. I feel like I told them afterwards.
Navy SEAL training.
I guess. Yeah, right?
Yeah, she's like, okay, I guess it was.
Put that on the resume next to the dancing.
I am so badass. But I told them afterwards, I felt like a baby dinosaur who imprinted on them because I loved them so much. They literally had my life in their hands and they made me feel like I could
That's
do
good.
anything. Like I just felt so safe and so taken care of. And
Yeah.
I could never have done what I did without them. I mean, they were just
Sweet.
I could not sing their praises
Sweet.
enough.
I was
So
going
we
to say,
spent
it could be
out-
worse. You could have gotten cast in James Cameron's The Abyss back in the day. You know,
God.
we've all heard those horror stories where it's like, none of you are trained to do this, but we're doing it anyway. The director almost died
Oof.
twice. It's
Those
just
actors
Oh my
are still
gosh.
scarred. They always tell those
Yes.
stories. They're still scarred.
Yeah. This is the literal opposite experience. This was like
So you had 2
a
days.
joy.
So you had 2 days of the
So we had,
underwater training?
we did 2 6-hour days with like a gap in between so I could like get my head right.
Yeah.
But they were so good and slow and deliberate. So, we go underwater, I just breathe. And then they go, okay, great. Now we're going to practice taking the reg out of your mouth and putting it back in underwater. And I'm like, that's impossible. And they're like, no, we can do it. So then they teach me how, you take it off and then you put it back in and there's like a button that you push and the air all shoots out and then you start breathing. Yeah. So then we just practice that, taking the reg in and out and in and out. And then they're like, okay, great. Now we're going to do the goggles. So you're going to take your goggles off while you're underwater, and then you're going to put them back on, and you're going to empty them of water while you're underwater. And I'm like, again, that's impossible. Nobody could possibly do that. And they're like, but wait, you can. And so they showed me how to do it. It's so cool. You like take them off, you're just like all in the water, and then you put them back on, and you do this cool thing where you put them on and you like breathe through your nose while tilting your head, and then all of a sudden all the water is out of your goggles.
Interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we did that for a long time. I just like did my goggles, took the reg on and off, and then like, okay, great. Now take the reg out, hand it to Lacey. And then when you're ready for it back, you do this. And I'm like, whoo. Okay. So then we do that just like little at a time. I just like hand it to her and then I'm like, give it back. And she's like, there you go. And she like puts it in my mouth. So we did that. So we spent a whole day in the shallow end, sitting on the ground, just doing all those things. Then we came back a day later. And we did all that same stuff, but this time we did it in the deep end at 8 feet. So they took me down at 8 feet, reacclimated myself, practiced the reg, practiced my goggles. And then we just started practicing like how far away Lacey could be from me when I took the reg out and how comfortable I was. And I went into it being like, guys, I can't really hold my breath that long. Like I'm feeling a little self-conscious about like how quick they're going to have to do this shot because I'm going to need my air. But like, again, they're just so good at what they do. They were like, the more comfortable you are, the more at ease you are, the longer you're going to hold your breath because you're just going to be like hanging out, like no risk, no pressure, just chilling. And so we got these big, long stretches where I was like, yeah, I can just float and hang out. And then like, when I'm ready, you just go ahead and bring that air back over. Like, so we did that second day, and then we had a rehearsal day. So for the actual filming day, they rented out this safety center that's down in Fayetteville or something. And it's this massive pool the deep end is 15 feet deep. And it's got this rig that's specifically designed to drop cars into the bottom of the pool so that rescue people can practice rescuing people out of cars because there's a ton of lakes in Georgia. And so cars be going into the lakes. And so they got to practice rescuing people. So that's like what this pool was made to do. So they rented out this whole big safety center. And then they blacked out the entire pool with like, black fabric so they could light it the way that they wanted to. And they put all these like fake plants and stuff in there. The thing about this movie, and we can talk about this when we get there of like, if people like it or don't like it or whatever, Francis went hard on practical effects. And I think it's incredible. I mean, he could have CGI'd this little moment in the movie in 2 seconds for $5. But instead, he took a week and Lord knows how many tens of thousands of dollars to get this like crazy shot that is maybe 10 seconds in the movie, but looks so dope for those 10 seconds. And the movie is riddled with that. I mean, the practical effects that he did on this thing is just
He's
a practical filmmaker, and it is
visually
beautiful.
100%,
He is committed to those old world sort of techniques, I guess.
And I just love it. I mean, it's just such a testament to him as an artist.
Yeah.
And this whole process, like my mind just kept being blown because I was looking around being like, all of this for me, like they're all these people, the safety, and these girls were hired to train me, and they bought me a hot tub so that when I got out, I could warm up. I mean, I was like, this is next level crazy. So So we did a rehearsal day. They like walked me down to the deep end, and I saw this. It was so crazy because the pool, they didn't have the lights on the rehearsal day. The pool was just blacked out. So I'm like down there with my reg, walking down from the shallow end to the deep end. And all of a sudden, like out of the darkness, this like headlight appears, and then there's a car. And then I'm like looking at a little convertible in the bottom of a pool. Like, does anybody know this is here? It's crazy. So I'm playing around with the car, and yeah, it was so cool. So we did a rehearsal day, and they got the camera down there, and we practiced a little bit with what that was going to look like. The pool was so cold, and they were like, "We promise it'll be warmer by tomorrow when we actually film." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to be fine, but I'm definitely wearing like, neoprene pants and whatever else I can layer under here." So then the next day we filmed it, and Francis was there, and I chatted with him a little bit before we got started. And I went and like sat with him, and he held my hand, and he was like, "Thank you for doing this." And I was like, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And he goes, this moment, it's really, the story is going to be told through your hair. And I was like, "Oh." And he was like, "So, sorry, but this is really about, her hair. She's just come driven into the lake. And so the hair is like, telling the movement, the story."
It's a lyrical moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "Game on, let's do it." And he was like, "Okay, thank you. And I was like, "Yeah." So got into the water, got down into my little car. And then we just started filming, and it was like so fun. It was so fun. And I remember being like, I was so scared about this, but this is just so cool and fun. And I was able to hold my breath longer than I thought that I would, to the point where everybody up top was like holding their breath with me every time I'd take the rag away. And they would all be like, "Ugh," and then like kind of freak out when I wasn't asking for air. And they'd be like, "Somebody better give her air." Because everybody who was working on it, except for the crew, so they have a specific crew to be underwater with us, right? Underwater filming people, that is what they do. But everybody else who was part of kind of the regular movie crew was like, this was like their first time being a part of this underwater situation. And so they were all crowded around the monitors, and everybody was like really into it. It was just like such a fun energy. And so we would do a few shots, and then they would have me come up and like take a break and breathe some real air. And I would come up, and I'd be like, "We gonna go again? Are we gonna go again?" And they were like, "Yeah, like, are you game to?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, let's do it again. Like, let's just keep going." So then I'd go back down, and they'd be like, "Francis, she's down to do it again." And he'd be like, "Okay, well, why don't we try this other angle? Like, what if we move the camera down like lower on the car and we like come up?" So then we were like getting to play and doing all these crazy shots where we'd like start low and come up, or one where they started close on me and pulled way, way, way back, and like another one where they started back and pulled in. And oh my gosh, it was just so cool. It was so fun and wild, and we were just having the best time. And eventually they were like, okay, we got like, if we just, Francis will just keep coming up with ideas. Like, we gotta
right.
You've been in the water. You've been in the water for a long time. So finally I got out, I got in my little hot tub, and I was like, this is amazing.
So that's cool. Yeah. I think
cool.
Stunts are always like that. If they're safely done, like, I mean, they are, I think actors, especially like when you're not a stunt person, like having a stunt that is safe enough that you can do, if you just get that little bit of training, if you just have that safety in place, is like, it's amazing. It's like, you realize why stunt people become stunt people, like chasing that thrill.
They're there for a reason.
Amazing. Yeah.
I like very much want to like take stunt classes now. I'm like, that was so cool. I'm so into it. I feel so badass. Like,
you get to go in those like parkour gyms, and like just like swing from things and like fall on all the foam pads where it's again safe, but you're just like swinging through the air, and you're like, it's so freeing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Although, have you put underwater stunt work on your resume? Because that's clearly a thing.
Yeah,
you now have a special talent outside of acting.
Not just a special talent.
Look. I require a lot of people to do that particular stunt.
I'll need 2 teams.
You don't want them to be like, "Show me, we have a pool over there. Show me."
I'm down there like, I haven't been brave enough to put it on my resume yet, because I feel a little like, I don't know. I should because it's cool. And I did it, and I learned how to do my own underwater stunts. And I was like, do I get a stunt bump for this? My agent was like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, I'm going to ask them.
Yeah.
I just put a lot of work into this. And they did.
Yeah.
Buddy Joe Hooker was the stunt coordinator,
Nice.
who's like
Oh, yeah.
a legend. And he was so sweet and so complimentary. And he was like, I've had actresses at the edge of the pool who would have dipped out by now. And I'm like, I think that you're probably lying to make me feel better, but I really appreciate it. And it's really helping me.
Awesome.
That's very
Yeah,
cool.
it was cool. It was cool. And then I wrapped it. So I wrapped for the second time. What I thought was it. That was it. And it was like such a crazy high to end on. I was like,
Mhm.
this is wild. This is everything. This is amazing. And I finally got my like big budget, experience. And then, so let's see, that was in March of whatever year. And then in April, I got pregnant. And then in October, they emailed me and they were like, hey, we want to do some reshoots. Francis has
5
added
months,
some
6
stuff. We
months?
want to
Oh my
do,
God.
6 months.
we want to do some reshoots. Are you available? And I was like, oh,
Give me 3 months.
yes. I was like, I am super available at the moment. I do look just a little bit different because I'm 6 months
Bumpity
pregnant.
bumped.
Yeah. And they were like, oh my gosh, congratulations. Okay, let us find out like if this will work. And I was like, okay. So then they email me back and they say, great news. We're going to do it. The way that Francis wants this particular scene shot is very stylized and kind of pixelated. And so we're not even really going to see you that much. So it's a go. We're going to do this. We're going to shoot. I think they were going to like go November. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Great.
Wow.
And then like 2 days later, they emailed me again and they were like, yeah, actually, we can't do that. We're going to get a body double. And I was like, oh,
Aw.
okay, fine. And then the next day they emailed me again, which is like, this is how this whole production went.
I
It was
believe
just
it,
sort of
yeah.
like back and forth. And then they were like, no. Okay, you're back on. You're back on. We're going to do it. Come to All Movie Hotel. This is where we're going to shoot with their little black box theater thing that we can shoot in. And we're going to have you do some ADR as well. And I was
Okay.
like, let's
That's
go.
great.
Like, I'm in. So I show up, 7.5, almost 8 months pregnant, very pregnant. And wardrobe has for me the dress that I had worn underwater.
Of course
'cause
they do.
And I was like, guys, did nobody tell you?
Tell
and they
you?
were like, it'll be okay. We just won't zip it up and we'll like put a coat on you. And I was like, sure. Again, it's going to be like very stylized
Right.
and whatever.
Yeah.
And they sent me a script, but they were like, this is kind of an outline, but actually Francis just wants you to improv with Adam. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
that's mildly intimidating. Great. So I show up, I get into my little outfit. I go into this tiny little room with Francis and a little table, and it's all, black, like a little tiny black box. And Adam comes in and Francis talks to us a little bit. And he's like, yeah, so this is that moment, Dave, when you emailed me about like, she saw something that enraged her jealousy. So what we had planted there was a ashtray and there was cigarettes with lipstick on them. And so the idea is that I'm coming home from the doctors where I found out that I'm
Okay.
pregnant. We've been trying for a long, long time to have a baby and it wasn't working. And I finally found out that I'm pregnant. So I come home and my first line had to be, I have good news. And then after that, Francis just wanted us to improv and I would notice the cigarettes. And then we were just supposed to start going and talk over each other and crescendo. And then I was supposed to leave. And that was what we were going to do. So we did. So we improv this scene. We did it, I think like 5 or 6 times maybe. And it was like, again, one of those crazy sort of out of body surreal experiences to just be like, I'm in this tiny little space. I am improving with Adam Driver.
Black box
Francis
improv
Ford
with Adam
Coppola.
Driver.
Is there, I mean, like, talk about the bucket list, like, check. I was like, how is this my life? And it was so fun. And, it's like actor play. We were just having a good time, yelling at each other. So that's what we did. We did a couple of times. And Francis would give us little tweaks, like make sure you talk over or make sure you really hit this high point and then like get out of there or leave, whatever. And all this whole time I had to kind of hold my jacket over my very pregnant tummy.
Right.
And then we finished, and Francis was like, congratulations, by the way. And then he was like, can I say something to your belly? And I was like, yes, you may. And so he gave some words of encouragement to my unborn son, which was like crazy and cool. And then they're like, okay, great. Now you're going to go do some
Godfather's
here. That's right.
Crazy. And they're like, okay, great. Now you're going to go do some ADR with Francis. So then we go into this tiny little recording studio, which is like me and Francis and the two recording guys. And they had me just do a couple of my lines, and then they had me do some more Caesars. And then Francis was like, okay, I just want to play a little bit. I'm going to just give you a prompt, and then I want you to just do or say, or, whatever you feel. And I was thinking like, okay, like, he threw me at the callback because I wasn't ready for the ghost thing, but like, I've really been through it now. I've done this movie. Like, I'm going to be ready for anything. Like, what you got, Francis? Like, bring it on, bring it on. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, ice water. And I was like, what do I Nothing. I was like, I'm sorry. Am I supposed to say words? Am I supposed to make noise? Like,
right.
You just run out and lock yourself in the bathroom.
I forget. You know what? I gotta go. Like, I did all I could. It was so funny. I was like, of course you give me something that I was just like not at all prepared for. So then, I made my best ice water impression, and then we just played from there. It was like, leaves and this and that. And I was just sitting there, playing with one of the greats.
One of the greats.
Yeah. And then I rapped again, and that was that. Third time's the charm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's going to be a hell of a story. Yeah. Yeah. That's also going to be a hell of a story to tell your kid when he's 18. You're like, by the way, guess who's in that belly?
Guess who talked to you through my belly?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that improv bit. So true to what he said, it is very pixelated in the movie, but he used our dialogue, which when I saw it for the first time, I was like, I just made those words up. Like those are in his movie. He just used them. And that also is kind of crazy.
Right. Yeah. Now you want your writing credit. Now you need your writing credit.
I do kind of want, she does her own stunts. She has a writing credit on Megalopolis.
Ghost writer for Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, this is something that what we were talking about earlier when this improv scene came about. There's a moment near the end when we're actually seeing the underwater scene. When Adam Driver's character is explaining what happened to his wife. Right. And he narrates over this quote, "She came home with good news, but saw something that enraged her jealousy. I followed, but saw her drive over the bridge and into the icy water. And in that madness, it came to me. I discovered the principle of Megalon trying to save her life." And when I watched that scene, and I asked her, I emailed her this in advance, I was like, did something get cut? Because I feel like that's referencing something that is no longer in the movie, that it seems it's kind of almost a throwaway line, but I'm like, wow, this seems to be explaining so much though, but it's keeping it so vague. So it is interesting that there was more there that did not, for whatever reason, he was like, no, we don't want to do that part in the movie, but we'll still have these lines. But I was very curious because that stood out to me the very first time I watched the movie, as I was just like, that's explaining something that I'm like, keep going with that. Why did you stop? Like, this isn't enough. So I'm glad to know there was more of a story there.
Yeah. And I do feel like there's a couple of elements in the movie where he sort of teases at an explanation, but doesn't give it to you.
Yes.
And obviously everything I think he does in the movie is very intentional, and making that choice to not fully explain it and leave you being like, what? But how then? What?
For better or for worse, whether you love it or hate it, like it's not an oversight, right? Plainly, it was intentional. Yeah. So when did you get to see the movie? Like, were you invited to any sort of premiere, so on and so forth? Like, what was your how early did you get to see it as a finished film?
So I got invited to the friends and family screening that happened in LA that he did for distributors when he rented out the IMAX at Universal Studios.
Yes.
And I got in, and that was like March, I think.
Okay.
of last year, and I get an email saying, you are invited to this top secret screening of Coppola's Megalopolis.
Actually, yeah, that was, I think, 3 weeks before Cannes. Like 3 or 4 weeks
Yeah,
before
it
Cannes.
was something like that. Yeah, because he was looking for distributors.
Mhm.
And they were like, it's in LA, let us know, no +1s, no phones, top secret, non-transferable. And I got the email and I was like, oh, I have a 2-month-old baby. Do I leave my 2-month-old baby to fly across the country and watch a movie?
Yes.
I do. I do that. I do that. I did do that. Yes.
Good.
I did. Yeah. And the timing worked out that like my mom happened to be in town.
Nice.
And so I left her and my husband and our brand new baby. I bought a ticket like to go there and back basically within like 36 hours.
Wow.
I had to buy all new clothes. Nothing fit. I was still like really had just had a baby.
Yeah.
So I flew out to LA. I'm like, I don't know if you guys have kids, but I'm like pumping on the plane. And then I drive over to Universal Studios and I'm like pumping in the car because I'm like, my boobs are filling up because I'm, my baby's breastfed every 3 hours. And I'm like,
Right.
there's a whole thing. I like pull up to valet and I'm like, I need like 15 minutes. Can I and they were like, oh yeah, just go right over there. So I'm like pumping in the car and then I'm like, okay, here I go. So I'm like walking over to the theater with like Andy Garcia. I mean, it was just like, I don't know that I've ever been in a room with that many celebrities at one time. And I walk in and I took the first free seat. It was next to Joe Montana. And I'm like,
nice.
and then that's how I got to see the movie. And it was so cool and so fun and so surreal to see myself. I've never seen myself that big on that massive
that was
IMAX screen. It was a real moment. And it was so crazy to not like have anyone to share it with, like in real time. Like I had Joe Montana next to me and I'm like, that's me. Like,
right.
And I just remember sitting there like gripping my seat and having this like absurd grin on my face. And just being like, oh my gosh, this is like, this is crazy and real and
fantastic.
And then it was over. And then I was like, well, I don't know anybody here. Everybody's famous. Like,
right.
So I like hung out for a few minutes and was like, I don't know. I should go.
I should probably not elbow my way into too many conversations here.
So what are we doing next, guys?
So sequel or what's happening?
Right.
But I saw casting and they were like, you just had a baby. And I was like, I did just have a baby. And now I have to go catch a flight home to that baby. So then I flew back to Atlanta and I was very glad I got to see it. Because I didn't go, because then it had its premiere at Cannes. And so I obviously didn't fly to France for that. And I didn't go to Canada for the other sort of North American premiere. I did go when it came out like a few days early. They did that live stream Q&A. And they screened that at certain IMAX theaters. And so I went with my husband and like a crew of people to go see that. And that was really fun. And like when the lights came on at the end of the movie, my husband was like, this is Sunny. And I was like, thank you so much.
That's why you needed him at the premiere too. Because of course the other person can like, shout you out and spotlight you, and it's not.
And you can pretend to be humble.
I need my hype man. So going forward, must always bring own hype man. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Dallas, you had a question earlier. Do you remember what that was?
Actually,
I cut you off.
That's all good. I'd actually jumped forward, so I'm glad you cut me off. I was wondering, since this, what's been the impact in terms of you professionally, in terms of kind of the inertia, the momentum, like what changed? Has anything changed?
Oh gosh, no, not anything. No, gosh, that's just the nature of this industry, isn't it? You can be in a fabulous Francis Ford Coppola movie and nothing can change. And I do think, who knows? There's no rules, right? There's no rhyme or reason to what we do. I think because it didn't get a lot of commercial success, not that many people saw it. And so maybe it's not that pitchable. I'm assuming my agents are out there being like, she worked with Coppola, she worked with Adam, like she's got that under her belt. I
You
know.
hope. Yeah.
One hopes. One hopes and believes and dreams with
That's
all
right.
heart.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, it's like every time you book something, you're
Yeah.
like, this is going to be the thing
This is the thing.
that launches me. And then
Now, has it
and then-
changed just your POV or like your own? Because when you moved to Atlanta, did this help re-spark some of the fire in you, at least for acting and continuing to pursue acting? Or how do you feel, even though it had nothing really big has changed per se, but do you feel a little more like, well, that happened, so something else can happen?
Right.
Yeah, I think that I came to Atlanta with my fire still very lit. Like I was
Okay.
still very excited about acting, and came here to find more work. And so and booking the Coppola thing was like, good job, Haley. You did the right
Yeah.
thing. You moved to
Right. Proof in
Atlanta.
the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is why we're here. And the experience was so wild and profound and amazing and I took so much away from that, from each bit of it. Was the gift that kept on giving. I just kept coming back for more, kept having new and incredible experiences. And so even just those stories have like filled me up, and I feel confident because I've got that under my belt. Yeah, so I think the fire has stayed lit, and I am still excited. And I do wish that more people had seen the movie and maybe had liked the movie as much as I like the movie.
Well, we'll see when it finally gets distribution too, of course, in the state, like outside of theatrical, because we're all still waiting on that. Here in North America, it's in this sort of limbo. I think they're working on deals, but like I had to hit up a friend overseas to like help me get a Blu-ray of this thing.
No kidding.
Because it's over there. It's released over there. It's just not released here. So
I know. I don't know.
Yeah,
my husband ordered
streaming,
a Blu-ray as well. He ordered one from overseas so that I could autograph it.
Perfect. So we'll see when it hits the larger public, because we know people are not attending theaters as much as they used to. So it was still a small segment of the population that would even be a part of the theatrical experience one way or the other. But on that note, this is a wine and entertainment pairing podcast. So of course we have to ask you, since you're here, what would you drink while watching Megalopolis? What is your drink of choice?
Or what drink sort of is synonymous with your experience filming Megalopolis?
Either or both.
Yeah.
I guess my like gut instinct response to what I would drink with Megalopolis is a martini.
Yeah.
Because it's like it feels old school Hollywood to me. It feels very classic. It feels sort of a little mysterious, a little sexy, a little dangerous. But then you have to add blue cheese olives because there's a decadence there.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
It can't just be a straight up martini. Like you've got to have that little flair, because this movie
extra
has
dirtiness
so much
in that,
flair.
like the olive, and then even that blue cheese dirtiness.
I mean, a 30-year development period, fully self-funded. Yeah, there's some indulgence in that.
40.
Yeah.
40-year technical. Yeah.
So I think that's what
choice.
I would go for.
Good choice.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Great, Haley.
Well, thank you so
seriously.
much. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Haley. I'm also going to ask you, if you want anyone to follow you online, where should they follow you online? Where can they find you? Or we can skip this question if you're like, no one should follow me online. Thank you very much.
If you would like to follow me online, I am on Instagram as the Haley Sims.
Cool.
The Haley Sims. I'm not very active online since having a baby. So every once in a while, there'll be some red carpet photos, like the horror film that I just had come out. And then baby photos is really all I've got these days.
Of course. If you want to follow Haley Sims online, be ready for some baby photos. Right?
Yeah. But, we're still out here. Mix. We're still hustling with, baby and auditions, and it's all happening. And
that buddy comedy about the two actresses who flee LA called Avocados and Peaches. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. Yes.
Just saying.
That's good. That's good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And let me also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, shout out to Allison Hayslip for
Yes.
putting us together in touch with each other so this podcast could happen. All right. On that note, folks, thank you so much, Haley, for being here. And
Seriously.
for all our listeners, we will be back next week for another wine and entertainment pairing for your entertainment, for your vintertainment. Thank you very much.
Entertainment.
Ciao for now, everybody. And
Thank
everyone,
you. Thank you.
yes, keep a lookout for Megalopolis when it hits North America. And if you're overseas, go buy the Blu-ray or streaming if it's available on streaming. It is definitely a movie that everyone should experience.
And
it is
Haley-
a unique, singular voice.
Haley, you mentioned the horror film. How recent was that? Is that a recent release?
April
Yeah, that
4th
just-
was the limited release.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's plug that.
And then
real
it'll
quick.
be
Go for
on. It'll be on streaming some point soon.
Some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So
All
keep
right.
and that's called The Grove, everyone.
It is.
Which was a real pain in the let me tell you, if you live in LA, there's a place called The
Oh
Grove.
my God.
So every
Yes.
time I tried to look up if it was playing in LA, like limited, and I was like, theaters, The Grove. And
And it
all
was
I
like-
could get was that
Just
the
the
theater,
theater,
The
yeah.
Grove. And I was like, oh, that was about to
I did that as well. Yeah. No, it was
Yeah,
the theaters closest to LA that it was playing in were like Orange something
Orange
and
County.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Arcadia or you know it
Places Los
it was out.
Angelinos are not driving that far for.
Right.
Because we lazy.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
do that. It's
Very
not
much
that
so.
far, but we lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
Thanks
thank you so much,
Haley.
Haley.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Ciao for now, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Entertain you, and we'll have a real good time. Yes, sir. We'll have a real good
Beautiful. And do you know, by any chance, how to... I want to give her a shout out for making this connection on the show. Do you know how to pronounce her last name? I want to be 100%.
Hayslip.
It's Hayslip.
Hayslip.
Okay,
It
perfect.
is Hayslip.
I was like,
Okay, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Hayslip or Highslip, and I just wasn't 100%. And I'm like,
I'm
let me
pretty
find
sure,
out.
98% sure.
Yeah,
Hayslip.
right?
We'll all be wrong together if it is. So cool.
Let's just all take it down together. Yeah.